You're listening live to Rightside Radio with Phil Williams. It's hard to go wrong when you're on the right side. Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right.
Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to Taco Tuesday. Taco Tuesday. We gotta have to have like some kind of a sound effect for Taco Tuesday, man. I don't know what we're gonna have.
I don't know either.
You know what? We need something like I don't know. There was a cartoon character years ago.
Did he eat tacos?
I'll think of it in a minute here. I got some notions here.
Okay. It's funny because I never eat tacos on Taco Tuesday. Rarely do I eat tacos on Taco Tuesday.
Are we gonna have to rename the day?
No.
To accommodate.
Not for me.
Just to accommodate your eating schedule.
Not for me.
Okay. All right. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
All right. Big Rig's on the board. We got a great show lined up for you. 3 o'clock today. Our friend Stephanie Smith, president of the Alabama Policy Institute, will be here because the legislature goes back into session today. They've had a couple of weeks off, but they are back in. And man, there's some heavy toting to be done on some bills that are down yonder in Montgomery, things that could or could not happen. And we'll talk to Stephanie Smith and get her read on that in conjunction with a discussion we're going to have about some other matters going around the state. Which reminds me, I've got a whole triple dipper, so hit it, man.
The Triple Dipper. 3 stories you've got to know.
That's right, the Triple Dipper, 3 stories, 3 themes, if you will, that you got to know as we run today's show in conjunction with our conversation with Stephanie Smith. We're going to cook up a batch of home fries. You know the deal. Every once in a while, we got to look around the state, find the things that are happening in our backyard, and recognize that not all the news that affects our life comes out of D.C. or from somewhere abroad. Right here at home, it matters. Home fries, number 1, Triple Dipper. Number 2, a dipper that I actually sort of held on to yesterday. Got down to where I had maybe a half hour left in the show, and I thought, I cannot try to just crush this one in. It's too good. It's too full. And then I even added some more to it. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper is illegal cash. Do you know how much is being spent on illegal aliens? Do you? I would hazard a guess that you know it's a lot. But when you read the actual numbers and what's being spent on their behalf, it's just mind-boggling. So we'll talk about that. Number 2 on the Triple Dipper, illegal cash. And then number 3, there have been some pretty serious reports out here in recent days. General McKenzie, who retired as the former CENTCOM commander, he recently said that he's of the opinion that we are in a very difficult position in the world right now, and that we should prepare ourselves for another attack on U.S. soil similar to 9/11. That being said, there are indications that there is something afoot, and we're going to talk about it in detail. National insecurity, that's number 3 on the Triple Dipper. All right, let me jump on over here to my Rightside Way monologue and just remind you guys, Southern Immediate Care. Southern Immediate Care is the sponsor of the Rightside Way monologue, and we're proud of it. Southern Immediate Care, a chain of clinics that covers a huge swath of ground across our overly broad listening area in places like Gadsden, Anniston, Natala, 6 more locations around the Birmingham area. Every one of their clinics is open 7 days a week. They will see all ages. Southern Immediate Care, sponsor of the daily Rightside Way monologue. So here's the thing. I really believe that freedom is contagious. It is. I mean, think about it. As soon as one person catches a glimpse of freedom, it becomes a thing that gets whispered about and then discussed and then called for and then fought for. And then once gained, it becomes that tangible and yet intangible thing that people will actually die to defend. I mean, it just starts with a few and then it grows. Just on a whim, I actually Googled that phrase, freedom is contagious. And of course, it was already out there. I discovered that there's various iterations of it, but the one that really got my attention was the former Republican governor of Colorado from 99 to 2007. That was Governor Bill Owens. He said the exact same thing. And in fact, his full quote was, "Freedom is contagious, and that's why despots fear it so much." What a great quote, man. But what does it mean? It means that in times of oppression, when the dark clouds of government overreach are raining on people's lives, that one person, just one, who is willing to take a step out and risk their own security to stand in the face of tyranny can inspire others, which then inspires others, which then cascades, and the calls for freedom can be far more contagious than any virus. Sometimes it's a word, sometimes it's a writing, sometimes it's an action or a call to arms. Sometimes it's just a look in a crowd that one person gives another, but both knows means I've got your back, let's do this. Images come to mind, like the amazing sight of the one man who stood in front of a tank in the center of Tiananmen Square in China, just stood there, blocking a tank, and galvanized a whole world. Or how about Andrew Jackson? He rallied up a ragtag group of militia and buccaneers and townsfolk to defend New Orleans near the end of the War of 1812, and he soundly defeated a far superior British force. He's quoted as having said this, you ready? He said, "Who are we? And for what are we going to fight? Are we the titled slaves of George III, the military conscripts of Napoleon the Great, or the frozen peasants of the Russian Tsar? No. We are the freeborn sons of America, the citizens of the only republic now existing in the world and the only people on earth who possess rights, liberties, and property which they dare call their own." Andrew Jackson's words and his actions in that campaign fired up a nation, actually propelled him to the presidency. But sometimes, though, it's a common man who rises up. Other times it's a leader who speaks over the fears of his people to provide reassurance and inspire confidence. But yes, freedom can be contagious. Isn't it amazing how one person can say or do just the right thing and turn a tide of depression into an inspiring moment, or even an inspiring movement? Take Martin Luther King. He was not of notable stature or impressive social standing, but he stood and he spoke, and the timing was perfect, and he changed his world. Dr. King's "I Have a Dream" speech may be some of the most quoted words of all time, and certainly among the most inspiring speeches mankind's ever heard. King was actually the youngest man to ever win the Nobel Peace Prize. He spoke out about civil rights, his vision of America living in racial harmony. His most powerful lines from that speech are, "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out its true meaning of its creed, that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal." Or what about Menachem Begin? Menachem Begin, 1948. The fledgling nation of Israel was preparing for an attack by Arab armies. Begin spoke to the Israeli people on the radio, preparing them for war with the Arabs. We're talking about a frightened and terrified nation of people that were just 3 short years after the Holocaust. But Begin was able to muster up a national collective courage, bringing strength to his people through his words. Listen to what he said. He spoke to them. He said, "We shall go our way into battle, and we shall be accompanied by the spirit of millions of our martyrs, our ancestors tortured and burned for their faith, our murdered fathers and butchered mothers, our murdered brothers and strangled children. And in this battle, we shall break the enemy and bring salvation to our people, tried in the furnace of persecution, thirsting only for freedom, for righteousness, and for justice." Less than a year later, Israel had won its independence and was a fully recognized nation on the world stage. And I'll be honest with you, as long as I'm talking about freedom being contagious and people saying the right thing at the right times to inspire others, I got to mention Great Britain's Prime Minister in World War II, Sir Winston Churchill. Responsible for delivering inspiring speeches that rallied the pride of a nation as they were being bombed relentlessly, he led a tired and bruised nation into victory over tyranny, and his speeches to the nation were just epic. At a time when bombs were dropping on innocent civilians and Nazis were marching across Europe, he spoke of courage and extolled the fight for freedom to the British people. His voice was a call to reassurance and a reminder of what was truly at stake, the actual freedom of the British people. His blood, toil, and tears and sweat speech is stuff of legends. In one of the best lines from that speech, he said this. He said, "You ask what is our policy? I can say it is to wage war by sea, land, and air, with all our might, with all the strength that God can give us to wage war against a monstrous tyranny, never surpassed in the dark, lamentable catalog of human crime." All right, but sitting here today, fairly comfortable in the security of being Americans in the 21st century, we may not be in that deep of a trial right now. The world may seem crazy, but there's no tanks or bombs, no foreign enemies marching on our land. But we have seen an ever-increasing attempt, though, to dissuade the people of this great nation from exercising the rights that are enumerated on their behalf in the Constitution. I can think of not so long back as when a gym owner up in New Jersey decided to run for Congress after spending 2 years fighting his liberal governor just to be allowed to stay open during the COVID shutdowns. I can think of people like the good folks like the Colorado baker who just said no in the face of overwhelming liberal opposition demanding that he bake cakes for gay marriages despite the fact that he had a faith-based right to decline to do so. And he inspired people everywhere. Or how about that little group of nuns, the Little Sisters, who decided they would rather go to court than to be forced to purchase medical plans that covered abortions which violated their faith and their consciences. And they won. Or how about a group of parents who spoke out at a school board meeting in Loudoun County, Virginia, and created a parents' right movement that is still going even now, and they changed the political landscape in their state. Freedom's contagious, y'all. It is. Freedom is absolutely the most contagious, infectious, wide-ranging, system-changing, inherently pleasing, gut-wrenching, viral, and liberating plague known to man. And we don't avoid it. We actually seek it. And tyrants hate it when we do. Because once it starts, it goes like a wildfire. So yeah, freedom is contagious. And I'm watching good folks rise up. And in this crazy election year that we're in, I'm hoping we're about to get into a whole pandemic of freedom. And that's a wrap for the Right Side Way. Well, there you have it. Listen, I'm just telling you, it's contagious. And when people will speak up, when people will get each other's back for the right reasons and the right causes and push back against tyranny of any kind, whether it be state or local or national or international, it doesn't matter. Freedom's contagious. People will fight for it. Phil Williams, Right Side Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Like making it cool to be a conservative. All right, so it's Taco Tuesday, and I was sitting there struggling on the spot to remember who I was. I knew in my mind I could picture a Looney Tunes cartoon character, and bam, immediately, Jeremy from Huntsville texts in and says, Speedy Gonzalez saying, Andale, andale, arriba. And then Bob from Athens joined in too and says, maybe Speedy Gonzalez. That's exactly who I was thinking of. So did you go find a sound effect?
Yeah, I got something, but he said something in Spanish before. I don't know what he's saying, but I'm going to play the half where he's saying that. Arriba.
Since we don't know what's being said, we don't want to run the risk of a thing that might have been dubbed in. So just play the important part at the end. Yeah. That's it. That's the one. All right, so we may have to find that or a cleaner version of that or something, but that may have to be the top. All right, y'all can vote if you want to. The text lines are indeed open. 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. Is Taco Tuesday now going to have the Speedy Gonzalez sound effect? It just may. Maybe. Yeah, maybe so. All right, I like it. Good job, man. Good find. Jeff from Indiana texted in and says, Phil, congratulations on Rightside Radio's Day of the Month of Conservative Radio Appreciation. Thank you for all you do to bring the good word politically and religiously to the people. Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. I think that's the holiday he coined for us yesterday.
What was it?
It's Rightside Radio's Conservative Radio Appreciation Month.
Okay.
Yeah.
The whole month.
I'm sure. Why not? John from Hunts says, Phil, awesome monologue, and I think the sound effect for Taco Tuesday should be a recording of Big Rig biting into a crunchy hard shell taco. No, we cannot do that.
You don't want that.
No, that would not work. No. He'd lose points, John. He'd never dig out of that B- you gave him yesterday. What'd you get a B- for?
Because I watched Seinfeld.
Oh, that's right.
Which I have no clue why he ate Seinfeld.
I heard Seinfeld was an Auburn fan. Just trying to bring you back up, bro. All right, John from Harvest, regarding the monologue, says, inspiring words from our leader now, quote, all we have to fear is, the thing. Come on, man. Yeah, that's exactly right. That sounds exactly like what we got. JT Lacey Springs says, Braveheart, Mel Gibson. Paraphrase, if you don't have freedom, it's all for nothing. That's a paraphrase. That was a great speech. And I thought about, as I was putting these phrases together, JT, I was literally thinking, do I include Braveheart? Because he was literally calling them to freedom. I didn't because it was a fictional movie. I chose to go with speeches that were actually made historically. But yeah, that was one of my favorite movie scenes of all time. I've seen some before where they try hard to have the leader like give a speech and you're less than inspired. Like, okay. It ain't coming across, man. You ain't cutting it.
That was like the only movie they did it and it worked.
No, there was a couple others. I'll be honest with you. Lord of the Rings again.
Okay, yeah.
When Theoden rallied the troops before they rode off into the battle with the orcs, that was a good one.
Yeah.
And then oh gosh.
Okay, I take that back. Yeah,
okay.
There's a couple of movies.
Hang on, man. I got another one here. I just lost my train of thought. Darn it. I'll come back to it in a minute. But yeah, there was a few. There were a few. Oh, I know what it was. The movie Independence Day, when the president said, "We will not go darkly into the dark of night." Yeah, yeah. Today is our Independence Day. Okay, those are fictional, and I'm just inspired. All three of them, just inspired. I'm ready to go out there and hunt a bear with a switch. Just saying. He's just staring at me like, I
don't know that saying. I really don't get it.
Hunt a bear with a switch? That means I am like empowered. I can do anything with my bare hands. I'll go hunt a bear. I don't need a big gun. I can just get her done. Why am I explaining this to you?
I don't know.
I don't either. Anyway, moving on. All right, listen, text it in or call it in, 833-687-4448. That's 833-68-RIGHT. First topic of the day is home fries. Listen, the legislature's back in session, and I used to be there, so I can say these kind of jokes, but I like to say that we got about 15 legislative days before the state is safer. So they're coming down to the wire. They're on the downhill run in the legislative session. There's a few things that I'm watching to see what's going to happen, good and bad. I am not a fan of the gambling bill. I have questions about the ethics reform bill, And I want to see somebody crush the life out of that bill that would raise your prescription rates. That and whatever else can happen. Just got to watch out. Here's the other thing, you guys. Watch out for what's called local bills. People don't realize it because they often fly under the radar, but Alabama, much of what we do has to be taken down to Montgomery and you given the authority by the legislature to then do it back home. If you like the classic example is, do you want to sell alcohol on Sunday? You'd be surprised. Your county may have a prohibition on that. You got to run a bill in Montgomery to allow your county to sell alcohol on Sunday. But what you don't also realize is sometimes they're doing things like, hey, let's run a quiet little bill in Montgomery, not a big deal, that will raise the lodging tax or will raise the local sales tax or might raise the property tax. You would hope you'd have a referendum to be able to vote on that kind of thing, but some of that stuff slips through without it. Watch out. Legislature's in session. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one, Alabama. Y'all, I'm talking about this show goes like way down south of Birmingham and up north of Huntsville and Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. All right, so listen, first out the gate, you know the deal. I've got to spend some time gathering up stories that round about here in our backyard, things that impact you and I, things that are happening in and around and amongst us, and we like to get those together and cook them up. We call it a batch of home fries. Yeah, cook it up. Smell it. All right, so here's the deal. Legislature's going back into session right now. In case you did not know, and by the way, I'll back up and say this. In case you did not know, the legislature only goes into session once a year. This is not like in D.C. or something where they're in and out all year long. It's their full-time job. People don't realize a lot of times the legislature in Alabama, the state house and the state senate, they are actually part-timers. Even the lieutenant governor is considered a part-time position. We used to call it my full-time part-time position, but there you go. But the legislature does stuff all year round around their districts. You know, they got meetings, they're doing different stuff, yada, yada. But when it comes to going into session to actually make the laws or pass the budgets, that only happens once a year. And they can't do a thing about it. They have to do it. It's scheduled, and it's slightly different each year, but it's basically on the calendar. Bam, you will come into the regular session and will convene, and you will convene for a period of, and I got to go from memory here, but I think it's 35 days of legislative effort or work in the chambers during a 105-day period, if I'm not mistaken. So they basically have to get in there. They spend 2 to 3 days a week, nugging out the legislative issues, passing the laws. They are on the downhill run right now. This legislative session they're in is more than half over. They've only got 13 legislative days left. It also gets down to the point that nothing else can get done. Because the process takes so long, there's no way in the world you can introduce new legislation or pick up where you left off on an old one. So at some point, because the quickest you can do something is it's got to go, if you drop a bill in the Senate, it's got to go for one day in the Senate chamber, being announced to the Senate and assigned to a committee, potentially the next day in committee, and then the next day it gets reported out. It could potentially be on the floor in about 3 days. But even then, you have to transmit to the House, and the earliest they can take it up will be the next legislative day, which might be the following Tuesday, and then do the same process again, assuming you have the ability to convene 3 days in a week. Because usually what they do is Tuesday and Thursdays, they're in chamber. Wednesdays, they do committees. Now, I'm in the weeds. Bottom line is what I'm telling you is this. It takes an average of 6 days to get a bill from start to finish passed. Never happens that fast unless you got a really super big agenda item. Right now, they got some big hairy doings. They got 13 calendar days left to pass a package of 7 bills related to workforce development that are supposedly high priority. So where does that leave gambling? Where does that leave the ethics reform bill? Where does that leave other things that were still kind of sitting out there, people wondering? By the way, my friend Charlotte Meadows, thank you, Charlotte, who just squared me away. She just texted me and said it's 30 days. Thank you, Charlotte. I've been out of office now for about 4 or 5 years. So it's anyway, that's why I've got friends. Thank you, Charlotte. So yeah, they have 30 legislative days. They are down to 13. Story here on Alabama Daily News regarding gambling. Lawmakers returned to Montgomery this week for the second half of the legislative session, and awaiting the House are significantly different, scaled-back versions of gambling bills. So yeah, you may recall, the House had this monstrous omnibus, do everything, make us Las Vegas, reward the bad guys, devil may care, tax it all, build big government gambling bill. Did I catch it all? I think I did. And they passed that sucker in the first few days of the legislative session. Everything else was set aside. Nothing was more important than the gambling bill. Whoop, whoop, they got it done. They sent it upstairs. The Senate went, put on the brakes. So the Senate took it and set it aside for a while, thought about it, ruminated on it, pondered it, Extrapolated. Next thing you know, they are in committee and they dropped a substitute on it because they did not have the votes. They were not going to get the votes. Praise God they weren't going to get the votes. That was an awful piece of legislation. You could look at that bill, by the way. It didn't matter whether you really liked gambling or not. That was still an awful bill. If you're a Republican, that bill sucked. You could go to the Republican website, and I did this. You can go to the Alabama Republican website, pull up their bylaws, and you could go down through that bill and you could just check off all the violations of the Republican bylaws. I mean, everything. It's awful. Anyway, what are they going to do now? The Senate did pass a completely different version. Not only is the version different, but it changes where the money goes. And it also changed the election day because it's going to have to be a vote of the people. So this is like, we decided to start from scratch. Story here on Alabama Daily News. Greg Albritton, who is the budget chairman who carried the bill in the Senate, he said, if we go to conference, which is what happens when you try to jibe the two chambers together, you try to get them together on a bill, you go to conference. If we go to conference, what changes will be acceptable to both bodies? It'll probably require a 3/5 vote to get it done, and that's a very heavy lift. He went on to say that House leaders have said the chamber will take up the legislation again, but there's not even a set timetable. I'm not sure they will take it up. They might. But are they going to agree? Right now, they appear to have lost the Democrats. And keep in mind, when the House ran that thing through, this is important. When the House ran that thing through, they did it with they did not have the votes for 40% of the Republicans. 40%. They had to have the Democrats to get it to pass. That's how bad the bill was. 40% of Republicans said, we don't want this. We're not touching it with a 10-foot pole. They voted no. So you've got House leadership was willing to split its caucus completely, side with the Democrats to get a very controversial bill passed, and then it went upstairs and didn't get any traction. That's a lot of political capital that got blown out right there. And I guarantee you, too, they've not only lost the Democrats. Story here says that Representative Sam Jones, a Democrat from Mobile, who chairs the gambling committee in his caucus, said they had worked with Republicans. One of the most important things he said was there'd be enough revenue coming out of it to address some of what he calls the ills of our state. In other words, they wanted social policy stuff. They wanted Medicaid expansion. They wanted all that. But he said as the bill stands now, he doesn't think Democrats will support it. So if they've lost the Democrats, they're already out. I guarantee you, though, some of the Republicans who voted yes are not going to do that twice. Some of them voted yes, and they feel burned by it now. Some of them are mad at their leadership for twisting their arms and getting them into this position. Some of them lost things they wanted in it. Others are like, why are we doing this? This is awful. And then you got some of the diehards are like, we need gambling, please. So it's just a mixed bag. Bottom line, there's my long march to give you a short answer. I don't think gambling is going to pass. And that's good. And it'll be back next year because they all, let's see, next year is moving into election season for the legislature, so I bet we won't. I bet it might be dead for a couple more years. Fine with me. Fine with me. Fine. Get her done. What else we got here? Let me get you a couple of quick ones. Home fries here. Let's see. Just so you know, your Attorney General, I'll take this one. Steve Marshall is at it again in a good way. Listen, I got no issues. I can search back and try to find things that Steve Marshall did or did not do that I didn't care for. I can't. One of the things that I really appreciate is our Attorney General does not just prosecute crime in the state. He goes after things that harm our state from abroad. He has been fighting against the Biden administration on a daily basis, putting his office to work, making sure that your rights are not just trampled on by probably one of the most constitutionally unsound presidencies we've ever seen in the history of the United States. But there's a brand new lawsuit. Story here on Alabama Reflector. Came out 2 days ago. The Alabama Attorney General joins a lawsuit challenging Biden's efforts to cut student loan debt. You may recall, you may recollect that it was just, last year when the U.S. Supreme Court decided that the president does not have unilateral authority to just wipe out people's student loan debt. He does not have the ability to look at, taxpayer dollars from you and me and Big Rig and all of us and take our money and pay off somebody else's student loans. Especially when you find that there was a lot of poor decision making. You went and got that 6-year planned degree in underwater basket weaving and you incurred $70,000 in debt, and now you want the taxpayers to pay it off for you. I mean, come on. So Biden got his backside handed to him by the U.S. Supreme Court and said, no, 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 and yet he's still at it. So the Supreme Court decision last summer blocked his strategy to outright cancel $430 billion in federal loan debt. I mean, by the way, that's a contract. When you take out a loan, that's actually a contract. Despite that loss and in completely brazen fashion, says Kansas Attorney General Chris Kobach, the president pressed ahead anyway and implemented other versions of student loan forgiveness. So 11 states have now joined a lawsuit, one of which, those 11, is Alabama. Thank you, Attorney General Steve Marshall. The new 11-state lawsuit, which was filed in Wichita, contended that the executive branch does not have the power to amend student loan repayment plans, which would essentially do away with another $156 billion in student debt. Kansas Attorney General said Biden was guilty of violating the Supreme Court's major questions doctrine, which presumed Congress has the authority to assign consequential decisions to a federal agency. Yeah, what Biden's doing is he's bypassing the federal question. The federal question doctrine essentially says that there are certain things that have to go through Congress unless they have otherwise delegated the authority for those questions to be answered by an executive branch function. And this has not happened. All right, we're going to take a break right now. We'll come right back, and I'll tell you, if you're a real estate appraiser, I got a bill you might want to know about. Or what about the Democrat who got elected up in Huntsville? What's she up to? Oh, yeah, she's already making waves, taking her mandate and going places with it. And then we got unions attempting to form. And then coming up, top of the hour, Stephanie Smith, Alabama Policy Institute. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. I mean, like making common sense like a superpower. Coming up here in the next few minutes, Stephanie Smith calling in from the Alabama Policy Institute. We'll talk about things as she sees it, heading down into Montgomery and other state policy issues. Really good at what she does. She's been doing a great job taking over now as this year as the president of API. Here's a couple things for you as we go through another batch of home fries. Yeah. Cook them. Smell them. All right. Remember last, by the way, that reminds me, do not forget, if you live in the Guntersville area, if you're listening to this show and you live in the Guntersville area, you have a special election today. Go to the polls and vote. Do not forget, if you have family in Guntersville, call them, remind them to go vote. Do not let what happened last week in Huntsville happen in Guntersville. All right, you've got a special election to replace Wes Kitchens, who went from being a state representative to a state senator, and you want to go ahead and make sure that that election is covered down on. Your candidate is remembered at the polls, and the work they put into running is not forgotten by the voters who just forgot to turn out. So what happened? What happened in Huntsville was exactly that. You had awful turnout, like pitiful, like shame on you kind of turnout. I want to say somewhere like lower than 14%. You can look at the percentages and go, wow, this was a blowout. She won like what, 62 to 38%. That looks big until you realize that's a total of less than 6,000 votes in a district that has, 45 or 48,000 people. So let's don't do that again. Anyway, her name is Marilyn Lands. So we now have a seat that once was held by none other than Congressman Mo Brooks. I mean, that's where he started out in terms of legislative work. He started out in House District 10 in Huntsville. I mean, that's like ironclad red territory. And now a Democrat holds it. Way to go, voters. State Representative Marilyn Lands is her name. Story here on 1819 News. She is not wasting any time trying to capitalize on the publicity she got out of flipping a red seat. Says Lands has now been a regular on MSNBC over the last several days, crowing. This is all big doings. It's a mandate. Not really. She's been a regular on MSNBC. In a recent appearance, she talked about the fact that she believes she's going to be able to challenge Alabama's pro-life policies through her special election campaign. No, she's not. Let's be honest. Marilyn Lands will never have the opportunity to truly vote on a repealing any of Alabama's pro-life laws. Quite a bit of it is actually embedded in our Constitution, voted on by the people already. And then what's in statutory form is not likely to be unraveled. You have a Republican supermajority. You're one blue dot in a big sea of red, so please stop trying to pretend you've got a mandate. However, here's one thing she did do. She says on Saturday she announced a political action committee that is geared towards elections and getting more women elected. Read that between the lines. Getting more liberal women who want to fight for abortion elected. That's what that is. She says, my supporters have formed the political action committee Respect Alabama, that's the name of the organization, to get more women elected in the Senate. So that's something else we're pushing for, she says. And anyway, you can donate to it apparently. And that's the way the PACs work. I mean, people who have a great idea, support a cause, have things they want to champion, they will sometimes have PACs, and those PACs then go out and support candidates of their choice. I don't mind that. You got to be careful. Some of the PACs are shady. They get set up and they use dark money, they call it. The question is going to be, is she going to receive some of the Soros funding that she got for her election? Is she going to wind up having this PAC set up, and suddenly that PAC then gets funded by a huge tranche of money from somebody like George Soros or some of the others who are from out of state that look at it and they go, there's a vehicle we can use. And next thing you know, the teachers union or the Soros DAs or some other major liberal organization, Media Matters, Southern Poverty Law Center, whatever, start donating heavily to that PAC. Then it becomes an issue. Voters in Huntsville, you guys, listen, y'all let this happen. Voters in Guntersville, do not let them have their way. Do not let the camel get his nose under the tent. All right, listen, we're about to head to the break, but I'll just tell you right now 2 other stories that I'm kind of tracking. 3, actually. One is the Alabama Real Estate Appraisers Board. What? Yes, everybody's got a board. All God's children got a board down in Montgomery. Some of that's because we're one of the most licensed heavy states in the nation. But we actually have a provision, and I saw this happen all the time. A new board's being formed, or a board's being amended, or something's being done that will require oversight. And a member of the Democrat caucus will go up and go, well, we're not going to vote for this bill unless you'll say that at least 2 of the members have to be minorities. Okay. And next thing you know, they do. Well, you now have the Pacific Legal Foundation, an organization that, sort of like Alliance Defending Freedom and some of the others, they come and they fight for constitutional rights. And they are here in Alabama now filing suit against Governor Kay Ivey because the Real Estate Appraisers Board has unfilled seats that are supposed to be held for a minority. And they're saying, we got qualified people out there, but they're not minorities. So it's racial tension in the opposite direction. Interesting. Coming up next, we got Stephanie Smith, API. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios. Man, we got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, welcome to hour number 2. We're still wrapping up dipper number 1, which we're calling home fries, because we're cooking up a batch of, you gonna get it for me? Yeah, smell them cooking. Yeah, we're cooking up those home fries, and coming in right now, the sous chef for the kitchen is our friend Stephanie Smith, president of the Alabama Policy Institute. Stephanie Smith, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well this afternoon. Thanks for having me, Phil.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hope you had some good time off during spring break and Easter weekend and all that.
We did. We had some good family time, some forced family fun over the spring break holiday, so that was good.
Did y'all celebrate the Transgender Day of Visibility?
We ignored that. I know you're shocked. We ignored that at our house and decided to have worship and an Easter egg hunt instead.
There you go. And I have no doubt, and I knew the answer before I even asked the question. But, you know, I saw somebody tweeted that. This is a total aside here, but I saw somebody tweet it out. Can we go ahead and now start celebrating some days of reality visibility? That'd be awesome. But
there's so many days now. I mean, yes. About gender, but also just random days. I mean, I think there's a silly day for every day of the week. So I choose to ignore that day and donut day and bagel day and all those other things too.
No.
There's some silly day for everything.
You have now verged into sacrilege with ignoring donut day. We don't
donut day.
Yes, because maple bacon donuts are the official food of Rightside Radio. Just so you know.
All right, well, I will commit. I will figure out when Donut Day, and I will send you some donuts on Donut Day this year. I'll make an exception for you, Phil.
Well, let's talk about some real stuff. So you were telling me just before we went back on the air that you're actually monitoring the debate right now on the House floor, I guess, for the ethics reform bill. I had Representative Matt Simpson on the phone. I think it was last week. He did a pretty good job. I told him I was leery. I asked him some hard questions because I was one of the ones that helped pass the ethics reform bill in 2010, or the package. Right. And here they are kind of gerrymandering it. But when one of his biggest oppositions is Kyle Whitmire from AL.com, I find myself thinking, I can't side with Kyle Whitmire. What's up? So where are y'all on this bill?
I mean, today may be Strange Bedfellows Day because Kyle Whitmire and Steve Marshall actually agree that the ethics bills are valid.
Oh, my gosh.
So, I think that Matt, and he and I have discussed this on and off since the summer. We've been passing bills back and forth and language back and forth, for a while. I think that he has very good intentions. I think that he's been tasked with something that's pretty difficult to do, which is create some definitions to tamp down on who the ethics code actually applies to, while also saying and trying to create a system of accountability.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are a couple of loopholes that we're pretty uncomfortable with still. And that's why I'm monitoring the House floor right now. There are a few amendments that we would like to see, one of which says there's what we're calling a friendship loophole. The definition of friend in the legislation could be, a lobbyist, a principal. If you were friends with that person, prior to being an elected official, then, or even, while you're an elected official, then you're exempted out, and you're allowed to take an unlimited amount of gifts from that person.
That can be problematic.
And so, and I mean, from being an elected official, it's a lobbyist's job to be your friend. And so, it's one of those things, as you've been around Alabama politics a long time. I've been around Alabama politics a long time. I actually consider a decent number of elected officials and lobbyists personal friends.
Yeah.
I mean, that come to weddings and funerals and, people that I've just known for 25 or 30 years, they are friends. They shouldn't be exempted out because we're personal friends. if I was an elected official.
Yeah,
and so we've got some trouble with that.
I could see that being a big problem. All of a sudden, you have more friends than you ever had before just because you're an elected official. Like you were a shy individual. You had to beg somebody to go to the prom with you, and now all of a sudden you have all the friends.
Well, that does happen once you win the election. That does happen. So everybody wants to be friends with you when you have a vote. Just ask the guys who are not in office anymore. How many times do people call and ask you your opinion on a vote, Bill?
Oh, they'll call me from the polling site. Phil, I'm filling out my ballot. What did you do? I've had it happen multiple times. Remind me, I won't do it on the air right now. Remind me to tell you later on what one of the teachers union reps in my area said the night of my election. She was suddenly my friend, and I had to remind her I just got elected. Anyway, hey, let's switch over to gambling. I mean, you guys have been neck deep in the fight on this. You guys have been, in my opinion, one of the leaders in the charge to hold this particular proposed legislation accountable and remind the people that it's not what they advertise it as. And you've done a great job. I kind of gave my lowdown on it a while ago, and how I'm hearing that it is come back, totally different from the Senate, and does not appear now to have the clout that it needs to pass in the House, but anything can happen. So what are your thoughts?
Sure. Yeah, so, the House bills and the Senate bills are vastly different in several different ways. The main way is actually governance more than kind of the net effect to the average Alabamian. But there are some fairness issues between the House and the Senate bill. The House bill is basically a free for all. It's basically like if we sat down, if you and I sat down and we were like, if we were pro gambling and we could get everything we wanted, and then they put it in this 200-page bill.
Yeah, it was a gambling smorgasbord, man. It was a gambling charcuterie board. It was everything.
That's right. And so the Senate bill does pare it down some. Certain casinos would be able to have table games. Certain casinos wouldn't. There would be no sports betting, unlimited. The House bill has the unlimited sports betting licenses and things like that. And so it is a pared down version. I think that if the House had the votes to concur with the Senate bill, that would have been done before spring break.
Yeah.
And so there are both Republicans who want more, which sounds like an oxymoron, but it's not. There are people with an R by their name who want more gambling than the Senate bill. And then there are also Democrats who want either more gambling than the Senate bill, or they want a piece of the pie, a bigger piece of the pie.
Yeah.
And they also don't like that date being changed with the congressional district.
Right.
Yes, and Democrats also don't like there being no designated language for the expansion of Medicaid.
The whole thing, the grand scheme sort of fell apart, but it's still out there, and I still think that the bill, if passed, the Senate version would still be problematic. But it's definitely different than what it was. But this is what happens every year. I mean, I just, and by the way, I'm trying to picture in my head the calendar, but is next year when they begin working towards election? Because 2026 is election year, correct? For the
right.
So next year they're allowed to start raising money 1 year out, and so that's the year when things get dicey on whether you want to pass a controversial bill or not. So
that's right. Next year is year 3.
Yeah.
So usually we will see controversial bills year 1 and year 2. Then year 3 it starts to tighten up, and then year 4 the teachers get a raise.
And all the roads get paved. That's right.
But since this legislature has been in session, the teachers have actually gotten a raise every single year except for the COVID year because they went home.
Yeah.
So things have shifted a little bit, especially that direction.
Okay,
but it will be year 3, so people will start paying attention to their votes more.
So real quick, before we go to the next topic, thumbs up or thumbs down? Do you think gambling is going to pass or not?
I think it will not.
Okay.
I'm going to be optimistic today and think it will not. It's it's the zombie that it always is. Something could break loose and people could just be like, let's go for it. But I do think that there's a lot of division right now. The greed lock has come back with vengeance. And there's, there are some actual fairness issues. Like I said, as far as, kind of picking winners and losers and those kinds of things. And that's what happens when government tries to pick winners and losers. Yeah. Everybody wants to be a winner.
That's right.
But not everybody can be a winner. And so hopefully, from my perspective, hopefully going to kill it yet again.
Okay, so let me ask you real quick with about 2 minutes or ish left. And right before spring break, or maybe during spring break, the big announcement came for the workforce development package, these 7 bills that is the priority of all of House and Senate leadership. The Lieutenant Governor, his commission came out with their report. The governor says she's all in on this. They waited till halfway through the session to even drop it in, which may have been to avoid getting caught up in the gambling stuff. But then again, I also look at it and think, if it's that big of a priority, why didn't you prep the battlefield a little better? But what are your thoughts on this package?
Yeah, there are a couple of the bills in this package that we've been supportive of. The child care tax credit is one of those that we are supportive of. There are a couple of problems with several of them, though, as far as just kind of governance kinds of issues. This is kind of inside baseball stuff. But some of these authorities and the consolidated groups are, not subject to procurement laws, not subject to open records laws, things like that raise my eyebrows.
Yeah.
And then also, the housing tax credit and some other things that should be directed towards certain regions of the state and aren't really needed statewide, make me kind of question the necessity for them statewide. And then there's just, there's some power and governance issues without a whole lot of oversight over, they're calling them Innovation District, the Innovation District Act. There's not a lot of oversight by the legislature or anyone else over these districts that would have police powers, corporate authority, taxation authority in some instances. It's a lot of power given to entities that don't have accountability directly back to the people. Those things are concerning.
What I love, and we're about out of time here, but what I love is what you just described is rather than going into the weeds of a particular bill, you talked the principles that govern your review of the bills. And I think that's something I think that too often gets lost when people talk, I just need a lottery. Have you seen what's in the bill? Or you look at something and go, well, I don't know why you can't just let us do that. Well, do you really want the government dabbling in the free market? That kind of thing. And I look at it and think, you just described principles, and that's huge. Right. All right, my friend.
Well, and from our perspective, we're limited government, so anything that expands the power and scope of government, we at least want to raise the flag and say, hold on, guys, let's make sure that we're making the right decisions here.
So what you're saying is you did not want Birmingham Southern bailed out by the government.
I would say that the state government bailing out any private entity would be something that would be against, regardless of whether or not it's a college or an industry or anything else.
Oh, Uncle Sugar kicking in.
No bailouts in Alabama.
All right, my friend, appreciate you. If folks want to find out more about Alabama Policy Institute and all the work that you do, where do they go?
We're on all the social media outlets, and you can find our website at alabamapolicy.org.
All right, my friend, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Phil.
All right, take care. That is Stephanie Smith. She is the president of the Alabama Policy Institute, where I spent several years on staff after I left the legislature. They do great work. Listen, as a legislator, I oftentimes would debate bills using research provided by the Alabama Policy Institute. If you want to go to their website, you'll find deep dives on principled issues related to things happening in Montgomery right now. And so if you're one of those deep divers who likes to know the behind-the-scenes facts, listen, API's website is full of stuff, just great information. You can't miss when you go there. All right, Big Rig, take it to the break, brother. We'll do that right now. I ran long on purpose. We'll come back and have a very short time together. I'll take a few text messages, and then, we'll be heading into our next dipper, illegal cash. Where's all that illegal cash going? It's cash for illegals. Oh, yeah. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just, I mean, like making it cool to be a conservative. Saving the world, one soundbite at a time. Jenny from Gunnersville texted in, says, oh, yeah. She says, we were going home, but we cannot handle the guilt. We will go vote. That's what I'm talking about. Man, that's a we, so I'm assuming there's at least two of you. Jenny, thank you so much for going to vote. And there ain't no guilt. I'm glad I was able to remind. So bottom line is all y'all people, all you right side ruffians out there, if you have friends, family, or even yourselves in the Gunnersville region, remember that there's a special election today for a House district. We do not need to leave that untouched. All right, go vote. Go vote. The fact that we had so many Republicans forget to go vote is why we now have a Democrat holding House District 10 in Huntsville, which has been held for decades by Republicans. I mean, that's where Mo Brooks used to serve. Come on. Anyway, thank you, Jenny. I appreciate you. And go vote. What else we got here? Kathy from Madison says a conservative woman would beat Marilyn Lands easily for House District 10. Well, find me one, Kathy. Maybe you. Find me one. And run against her. I mean, we got to find a better candidate. Apparently, the last one, what was his name? I just forgot his name already. See, there you go. But the bottom line is the guy who ran before Powell, anyway, he wasn't getting it. He wasn't inspiring people. He wasn't. He didn't have a great campaign. He didn't, and I'll say this too, he didn't have a lot of voters show up, which matters. He also didn't have what I would assume to be, what I saw to be not a lot of support coming out of leadership in the Republican Party. I mean, was the House Speaker up there campaigning for him? I hope so, but Donna from Hartsville says Taco Tuesday. Oh yeah, says there's a kid-friendly song on YouTube. When you have you singing, it'll Taco Tuesday, Taco Tuesday. So we may have to find it.
Yeah, we'll have to look that one up.
All right, we'll do it. John from Harvest says my monologue says another inspiring speech from Lord of the Rings, Aragorn at the Black Gate. Oh yeah. So it ends with, by all you hold dear on this good earth, I bid you stand, men of the West. There you go. And he's right. It holds true for us now.
I need to rewatch the series. It's been a long time for me.
Somehow or another, like it seems like every third Sunday they show the trilogy. And if I've got any chill time on a Sunday afternoon, I'm catching part of it. And then I get really tired of watching Gollum lead Frodo into the mountains. I'm like, okay,
That's always that part.
I'm sick of watching Frodo go, it's so hard. Stop it. Just go back to fighting orcs. I want to see somebody fight some orcs. Mark from Red Bay, about my monologue again, says speeches that do less than inspire reminds me of Joe and Kamala. Yeah, nice. JD from Hartsville says the Patton speech by George C. Scott. Oh, yeah. Your job's not to die for your country. Your job's to make some other poor blankety blank die for his country. Yes, indeed. And then Brent from Athens says John Adams' speech at the end of the first episode of the John Adams series is he's about to serve in the Continental Congress, one of the best in regards to freedom. I need to look that up. I saw that, and I don't remember that speech. But thank you, Britt. I appreciate it. All right, we're coming right back. New Dipper, illegal cash. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid conservative and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here. This one is what I'm talking about, Alabama. Y'all, I'm talking about this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, by the way, I got to say, if you're listening to the show and then during the breaks you hear commercials playing, just know this. Those commercials are important. Those are our sponsors. Rightside Radio, we are a standalone entity. We are a business unto ourselves. The stations you might be listening to us on, they don't own the show. We do, and we send them our show. Part of the way we support what we do is by selling ads. So if you're a Rightside ruffian, you got a business that has goods or services, think about this. We're told that with all our stations together across North Alabama, we have over 30,000 listeners a week, a whole bunch of right-side ruffians in one place that might want to hear about you and buy your stuff before they buy somebody else's. So if you'd like to advertise on Rightside Radio, we'd love to talk to you. You go to our website, rightsideradio.org. That's rightsideradio.org. You click on the Advertising and Contact tab. Send us a message. Lauren from Rightside will be in touch with you ASAP, and we will get you on the team as quick as we can. We'd love to have you. Advertise on Rightside Radio. Go to rightsideradio.org and send us a message. We'll get on it. All right. Dipper number 2, illegal cash. Yeah, it's all about the Benjamins, man. I mean, listen, there is so much cash being slung at the illegal alien problems that we have right now. It's really unbelievable, and I still think that we're going to look back in decades from now. Well, we're looking back right now, but we're going to look back on this and go, God, why did we do that? Why did we let that happen? Thank God for the state of Texas bowing up, because that whole 10th Amendment thing, man, you got to. We're sitting here right now on a powder keg that is literally fracturing our society, draining our resources, straining our capabilities, pushing our people, creating new crime. We've had over 100,000 people, Americans, die from fentanyl poisoning, which is largely tracked across the southern border. Y'all, if a terrorist organization showed up on our soil and did half of what is happening because of the illegal immigrant invasion that we have at the southern border, we'd be going to war over it. We'd be launching cruise missiles and telling the 82nd Airborne Division to shoot up. I'm just telling you. The damage that has been caused by the recklessness of the Biden administration's inability to control the border. Absolute dereliction of duty. On the one hand, I don't fault the folks from other countries wanting to come here because they're being given free stuff. But how does the free stuff happen? It's really not free. Somebody's got to pay for it. I got a piece here. I'll start off with this. Washington Examiner, this piece is literally a year old, all right? The best summary I could find is this one from a year ago. So keep in mind that the numbers have advanced further since then. It says taxpayers spend at least $182 billion a year on immigration, illegal immigration, the cost of providing services to an estimated 15.5 million immigrants. Think about that. $182 billion a year on illegal immigration. He said the bottom line for each taxpayer is a bill of roughly $1,156 a year. It's as if each one of us contributed $1,156 to pay for illegals who aren't even supposed to be here. I do not mind immigration. I welcome folks to come to our country the right way. I have family members that are naturalized citizens. Love them, and I'm so proud that they're a part of my family, and I am so glad that they also went through the process they did to do it right. Did it take longer? Yeah. Illegal aliens, according to this article from Washington Examiner, only contribute roughly $32 billion in taxes at the state, local, and federal level. That means that the net fiscal cost of illegal immigration to taxpayers totals $150.7 billion. Just 5 years ago, it was only $116 billion. What they're saying is it's going up exponentially. I would dare say we're over $200 billion a year if those numbers are holding true. That was a year ago. Now let's take a look at what it's doing to our communities. City of Denver, story here on Fox News that came out on March the 7th. So we're just under a month. March the 7th. City of Denver shutting several of its migrant shelters, and officials are asking local property owners to house some of the so-called newcomers. Newcomers, that's what they call them. They're not illegal immigrants. They're just newcomers. Yeah, newcomers who got here illegally. Denver Mayor Mike Johnston recently announced the city has started to scale back its migrant services with a goal of reducing the current budget deficit by nearly $60 million. You're talking about the city of Denver has a budget deficit so large they're trying to cut $60 million of that deficit just by scaling back what it's doing for illegal immigrants. Well, it sucks to be a sanctuary city, doesn't it? He said the effort is being supported by local nonprofits who have already connected migrants with various forms of housing, and thousands making their way out of the shelters. At one point, they had upwards of 4,500 people looking for housing in Denver alone. And then migrants started posting on social media looking for places to live. 1,300 people right now, he says, over the last 2 weeks or so, we've been able to help get their work permits. Okay. Earlier this year, you ready for this? Denver mayor predicted the migrant crisis would cost the city around $180 million. $180 million. The city has supported 38,861 migrants at a cost of nearly $58 million so far. That's where we were a month ago in Denver. Where are we today? Story on Fox. Came out yesterday afternoon. Denver city officials caught on camera begging migrants to leave. Listen, they are not only wearing out their welcome, they're wearing out the ability of the cities they're going to be able to do anything. Even the cities that so-called sanctuaries, you are welcome here. We won't report you to ICE. We'll do all the things. Oh, yeah, how's that working out for you? A Denver city official, according to Fox News, appeared to beg migrants to leave the sanctuary city that's been burdened with illegal immigrants in a leaked viral video. Yeah. It says Andre Carrera, Denver's newcomer communications liaison. What a stupid title. Newcomer communications liaison. That's the guy that handles the illegal immigrants. He's the newcomer communications liaison. Okay. The opportunities are over, Carrera reportedly tells the group in Spanish. New York gives you more. Chicago gives you more. So I suggest you go there where there's longer-term shelter. There's also more job opportunities there. We're not going to block you if you want to stay here. If you stay here, though, you're going to suffer even more, and I don't want to see this. And then he offered to transport them anywhere they want to go. You don't have to walk anywhere. We can buy you a free ticket. You can go to any city. We can even take you to the Canadian border, wherever. Jeez. This is nuts. So much for being welcomed. Hey, welcome to Denver. Can we get you somewhere else, please? Just it's like, okay, it's like a Seinfeld episode at this point.
Yeah, I agree.
Just saying. But y'all, listen, illegal cash, it is flowing like water. They are spending money in the sanctuary cities. They're going bankrupt. They're wearing out the ability of the tax. And by the way, people are ticked. Saw a story today that I didn't even bother. Let's see if I got it on the screen still. Hang on a second. Where is this? I'll find it in a minute. Just saw it a little while ago, but I think it's the state of Maryland has a former veterans home that they've now repurposed to house illegal families. People are ticked. And this is the kind of thing that's happening. You got Democrat, like I had an audio. We played it a couple of weeks ago. I wish I'd thought to bring it back up. We had an audio a couple of weeks ago of a woman who's a Democrat voter. She even admits, I voted for Joe Biden, and she's just talking about how aggravated she is that all the money that the city has is now going to house illegals. I think she was in Chicago, and how it's just not right. Well, folks, illegal cash, I'm just telling you, it is flowing like you would not believe. How about this? Last story for the break. Michigan Republicans. Michigan Republicans, according to Daily Wire, sounding the alarm on a state program that potentially gives illegal immigrants up to $500 a month in rental assistance. Why? We got to get them into a house somewhere. We got to help them out. We got to pay for it. No, you don't. Now, I don't want them living on the streets and I don't want them going hungry, but they came here knowing full well what the risks were. And then the Biden administration let them in. And now you have to pay them $500 a month in rental assistance? Republican leaders in Michigan are raising concerns about a new program established by the Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer's administration that hands out up to $500 a month to refugees and migrants, whom many on the left are now calling newcomers. The GOP lawmaker said the program could be helping people who enter the country illegally pay for their housing. The Michigan Newcomer Rental Subsidy Program. Think about this. In Detroit, Michigan, you've got homeless people on the streets. You've got folks who are looking for work that are doing everything they can who are American citizens. But if you walked across that border illegally, if you got your feet wet in the Rio Grande, then guess what? You can get up to Michigan and they'll give you $500 a month to help with your housing. You go ahead and find 2 other migrant families and pool together your resources. You got $1,500 a month for housing. I'm just saying. The Daily Wire reached out to Whitmer's office for comment. I don't think they heard back. Migrants who cross the border illegally are often called asylum seekers, but 474,000 claims have been filed right now, and this is nuts. This is absolutely nuts. All right, we're going to take a break right now. Big Rig, take me to the break, man, while I recover myself. I mean, the money that we're giving out to illegals, it's illegal cash, y'all. Just that illegal cash machine is just churning out money. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Wow, making common sense like a superpower up in here. Hey, listen, I'm going to take a couple of text messages and a phone call right now from Jeff from Indiana. Hey, Jeff Rowe, how you doing, man?
Hola, Senor Phil.
Viva la Angla.
I'm practicing up on my Spanish and everything, so when I go to Michigan, I can pretend to be an illegal alien, and when I go on vacation there, I can get my housing paid for,
Well, hang on, brother. It gets better. Apparently in California, you can get your health insurance. In Illinois, you can get $9,000 in rental assistance. And then up in, Chicago's got a shelter. It goes on. I got story after story. Oregon spent $29 million to house people. And in fact, one article I've got here says that taxpayers are spending more money on illegals than they do on military families. It's just unreal.
Wow. No, it's not unreal. It's called liberalism.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it's called.
Yeah.
Hey, why don't we, start taking these people? The United States gives out so much foreign aid and everything. I think we need to start looking at how many people come from whichever nation and start deducting that from the foreign aid we give to everybody. And keep it here, because why they need foreign aid? Heck, all our citizens are here.
Well, I tell you what, I'm for cutting off the foreign aid. If you're Venezuela and you're emptying out your prisons and sending them north to our border, I'm saying you don't need any foreign aid. If you're Mexico and you're not doing a thing to stop the tide at the border, I'm saying you don't need foreign aid. Just cut it off.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it's nuts, but right now illegals can come to this country and get a free ride, so much so that you got that one TikToker who's out there advising people on how to beat the systems or cheat the systems, or at the very least just participate in the systems. Yeah.
I'm looking for my free ride. I've been paying for somebody else's free ride. I'd like to turn around and get my free ride money back. Let them pay for me for a while. They can come work for me. I got some stuff they can do.
No doubt.
If they're going to, when the Irish come over here and everything back in the early 1900s and everything, they was indentured servants to pay for the trip and everything over here. I think maybe we need to bring back some indentured servitude. Maybe. If you're going to come here and people are paying you way, they're basically indentured servants to the cartels. So, hey, why don't we get our part of the deal?
Some of them are. Some of them are coming over here, and they're in a form of indentured servitude. They're told to report in, and they wind up being labor in the cartel-backed restaurants, nail salons, sex trafficking. They wind up having to serve their time, and they're treated like slaves.
Yeah, they're working for them, so why can't they work for us too?
Yeah.
And congratulations on your special day of the Rightside Radio of the Conservative Appreciation Month of May.
So April. We're in April.
April.
So April 2nd is officially Rightside Radio Conservative Broadcast Day. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I'm saying that, and I have every bit as much authority to say that and give that to you as the people who changed the election laws in 2020.
Yeah, nice. All right, man.
Maybe even more.
Are you on the way north already?
I'm coming into the wide road of Nashville where it widens out. Yeah.
All right. Well, be careful on the road, man. Get ahead of that weather.
Oh, yeah. Well, I ain't too much worried about the weather. I'm worried about the idiots that's driving out here in the weather with me.
No doubt. All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Nashville is chock full. Have a good one, buddy.
All right. We'll see you.
See ya.
So listen, this illegal cash, and some of y'all should be getting mad when you think about this. Think about how hard we work, how hard we work to do things for our kids, put food on the table, to have the basic necessities, to have some luxuries. And by the way, living in America is a luxury in itself. Don't forget that. But that being said, if we're working hard and contributing, we don't mind helping. And this nation is more generous than any other nation, perhaps in the history of the world. That's my thought. Where else do you see the level of care that we provide, not just for our own people, but for others? This is not that. This is abuse. This is like extortion. This is like an abuse of the system. This is like when Mama is an invalid, and Joe Bob got hold of her checkbook, and he's just writing checks for himself now. It's elder abuse, man, and that's why I feel like we're being abused by people who showed up on our doorstep and wanted our stuff, and they're just taking and taking, and it's like a voracious appetite. It never seems to end. But
it seems like we're giving it to them.
We're just handing it to them on a silver platter. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No expectation. Just here, you want stuff? We'll give you stuff. When we come back, I'm going to give you more of the stuff that we're giving them that'll blow your mind. It's maddening, to be honest with you. It just absolutely is. A couple of text messages real quick before we go. Chuck from Oneida, Tennessee just texted in. Jeff, he says, tell Jeff, clear the idiots out of the way. I'm coming in right behind him. So Chuck from Oneida is out there on the road behind you, Jeff. So clear the path, man. Thomas from Athens says there's a new article on the Epoch Times claims that Biden has issued 500 plus immigrant orders while in office. Not one of them is for remain in Mexico when awaiting asylum. Biden says he's doing everything possible for the newcomers. Yeah. Jay from Legtown, says if an illegal alien can go to Michigan at $500 a month in rental assistance with no paperwork, does that mean that I, or anyone else for that matter, can do the same and just claim to be an illegal alien? I don't know how they weed them out, man. I mean, I don't know. It seems rather discriminatory. Can I just show up and put on an accent and pretend I don't understand and I have no papers and just get money? That seems like how it works. All right, Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. Alabama's syndicated news talk leader, Rightside Radio. Phil Williams here live in the Rightside studios, man. We got the local, the state, the national, covering down on all the issues. And oh yeah, like the dude just said, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Well, text it or call it. What do you think the options are? What are the odds are that we can go claim some of this cash? They're just handing out. I mean, literally handing out. Here's a story that will just chap your, here's the bottom line. I'll read it to you. Townhall.com. Came out 4 days ago. Townhall.com, illegal immigrants are given 7 times more taxpayer-funded benefits than military families. Let that sink in. Said it pays more to be an undocumented immigrant living illegally in the United States than it does to be a soldier who is serving the country. According to a new report, criminal illegal immigrants are given 7 times more taxpayer-funded assistance than military families. Part of a $53 million New York City program, illegal immigrants, families of 4, will receive an average of $1,440 a month. A month. Free money for showing up illegally. This is more than the allowance for some deployed troops. According to the Military Times, enlisted soldiers receive a guaranteed allowance of $452 a month in basics for sustenance. That's called BAS. Deployed soldiers only receive $399 a month in meal deductions. Under the current system, over $200 is lost each month for each deployed soldier and their families. So in other words, soldiers receive about $1,860 less cumulatively during a 9-month deployment than they would have if they had not been deployed. Meanwhile, illegal immigrants receive $1,440 a month. My gosh. It's just, listen, that should be burned into your brains right now. That someone needs to, can someone please carry that article to Karine Jean-Pierre and tell her to please explain it? How about this? So we're in the section called illegal cash. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about all God's cash is flowing out right now. The coffers are being emptied. The bowl has been turned upside down. Let's just dump it all on the ground and y'all grab it. It's a piñata full of cash. See what I did there? Piñata, cash. Okay. California becomes the first state to offer health insurance to undocumented immigrants. Whoop, whoop. That came out just right at the end of the year. California will welcome the new year by becoming the first state to offer health insurance for all undocumented immigrants starting January 1. All undocumented immigrants, this is an ABC News article, by the way, they're called illegal immigrants for most of the world, but, you know, when it's ABC, it's undocumented. Anyway, regardless of age, will qualify for Medi-Cal, California's version of the federal Medicaid program for people with low incomes. By the way, for those who don't know, that is not just a California bill at that point. The way Medicaid works is the state puts up a certain amount of money and draws down what's called a federal match. So if you increase the rolls in Medicaid, you not only increase the amount your state is paying, you're also increasing the amount that federal dollars are being paid into it. So California just sucked down a whole bunch of your Alabama tax dollars, just so you know. They're just going to go and say, you know what? Let's bring in a whole bunch of illegals. We won't close our border. We won't try to fight to do a thing about it. They'll show up. What do we do? Well, let's put them on Medi-Cal. That'd be awesome. So now Medi-Cal expands, and you and I here in Alabama, we have to send more money to D.C. so they can help pay for the Medi-Cal in California. It says previously undocumented immigrants were not qualified to receive comprehensive health insurance, but were allowed to receive emergency and pregnancy services. But that's changing. Then they added undocumented children in 2015. Then they added the expansion of Medi-Cal for young adults ages 19 to 25, regardless of citizenship, in 2019. And then they're adding everybody. Everybody, la-di-da-di, everybody going to get some Medi-Cal if you go to California. The cash is flowing. What's the cost going to be? Do I see a cost in this article? Hang on a second. Let me just jump back in here real quick. ABC News. Do you have a total cost to the taxpayers on this? It will cost the state over $6.5 billion annually. Wow. $6.5 billion annually. Started January 1.
That's a lot of money.
Dude, you and I could not even swim in that much money. I mean, that's a lot. That is a lot. Fox 32 out of Chicago, local Fox affiliate in Chicago. Illinois provides $9,000 in rental assistance to migrants seeking temporary housing. What? Yes. Fox 32 spoke to Christina Pacione Zayas, the city's first deputy chief of staff, who provided insight. 41 buses, this story, by the way, came out in October of last year. 41 buses have arrived to Chicago, bringing the total of migrants to 11,000, a whole 11,000. They have 11,000 crossed in 6 hours down in El Paso sector alone in Texas. But 4,000 people are still sleeping on police station floors and staying at the airports. Currently, the state is funding temporary housing, including rented apartments and homes for migrants, providing up to $9,000 in rental assistance for a 6-month period. You show up, you don't got nothing, you came here illegally, you don't know what to do, you hardly speak the language, maybe not at all, and you just say, hola, ¿cómo está? And next thing, or for that matter, it can be, you know what? I shouldn't say that. There's like 160 countries that are flooding across the border. You know what? Now that I say that, I retract that previous comment. That was far too narrow. It was actually more likely that it was any number of languages from Central and South America, China, Haiti, the everywhere. But yeah, $9,000 in rental assistance for a 6-month period for just showing up illegally. Just showing up. Just, hey, here I am. How'd you get here? Well, I walked through 9 other countries and I got here and claimed asylum after I swam over and then climbed over the barriers and then fought with your guards. And they said, okay, where do you want to go? I just chose Chicago. $9,000. Here you go. How about this one? Chicago's 60-day shelter limit is granting extensions because they can't find them housing. Woo, I'll just leave that one alone. CBS News. Fox News, another story. Dim states and cities are overrun by migrants are funneling millions in federal COVID-19 aid. Well, now, remember all that COVID money? Remember how they passed the ARPA bill and the American Rescue Plan Act was going to rush in and save the world from COVID? And yet it was so filled up with pork. Build back better, man. Let's do it. Inflation Reduction Act came in. Wow, we're going to spend all this money and we're going to save you from the perils of COVID. Except that what we're looking at right now out of that $1.9 trillion federal COVID-19 stimulus package is over $517 million that have been earmarked to go to cities and towns is being used to provide cash payments to individual illegal immigrants. It's just going in the debit cards for illegals. Y'all, the recklessness in which they are spending this money is at epic levels. They're going to bankrupt this country. And then you got Oregon. Oh, God bless them, Oregon. Did you know that Oregon just decided today, I think it came out yesterday, that whole thing where we legalized all drugs in Oregon, that really didn't work out very well. We're going to repeal that. The voters went to the polls after voting 58% to allow for pretty much any illegal drug to not be illegal anymore, as long as you didn't have past a certain amount. If you weren't a trafficker, you could have anything you wanted on your person, and it wouldn't matter. As you might expect, drug-related issues went through the roof. But this once we legalize it, it'll be easier to manage. How'd you figure that? That's like saying we legalized prostitution and people quit using prostitutes. No, they didn't. They just didn't worry about getting arrested. So they just yesterday decided to repeal that. Well, Oregon, the same state, just so you know, story that came out just about 30 days ago, spent $29 million on an initiative to provide hotel accommodations, food, and housing for immigrants seeking asylum. And they are pretty much having to shut that program down. Shut it down. Officials at the Department of Human Services opened a so-called Welcome Center in November of 2022, securing 125 rooms at a hotel near Portland. Whoop, whoop. They're going to take care of people. Had about 30 asylum seekers show up. Here you go. Got your room. No problem. We'll call you an Uber. It'll be great. 14 months later, 469 people are staying there. Oh my gosh. And we're spending how much? $29 million. Stop the madness. And so they did. They stopped it. Like somebody woke up and said, this is an unsustainable thing. Y'all, the amount of illegal cash. Where's that first story I had? Washington Examiner a year ago reported that all said and done, over $182 billion was being spent a year on issues related to illegal immigration. A year. And that was a year ago. And what we are seeing right now is basically an assault on our finances. It's like somebody stole the checkbook, and before you got it back, they're just writing checks wantonly right now. All right, we'll take a break right now. We'll come right back, and I will switch gears. We're going to move into a question of terrorism, national insecurity. Y'all stay tuned. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. We will be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just saving the world one soundbite at a time. I'm going to do this dipper now. Dipper number 3. It's a 3-dipper day, man. Getting all 3 dippers. Oh, dipping deep right now. Nice, all 3. National insecurity. Okay, I do this periodically, right, where I look at the level of security we should feel as a nation, our capabilities as a military, whatever the case may be, and I assess them through the view of knowing that the Joe Biden administration is still in charge. Listen, this is not meant to be an alarmist. I will never come on here and just fill up the microphone time with alarmist rhetoric. All right, I'm not what I would call a conspiracy theorist. I'm not, but I'm very pragmatic. And I believe that it is time for Americans to be a little more on guard. I think it'd be wise, and I say this with all candor. I think it'd be wise for you to have a family action plan. If the grid goes down, what does that mean? If somebody takes out a couple of the major nodes through which power supply, is transmitted, because it does. It goes through major nodes. There are substations and major transmission sites that, if they go down, it brings down a huge chunk of the grid overall. And if they do it right, you can bring down whole swaths of our society. I think it'd be wise for you to have a plan. What do I do? What do I do if the phone networks go down? So many of us rely now on our cell phones. Think about what happened with AT&T just less than a month ago. AT&T went down for a full day. That's a lot of AT&T subscribers that are like, what just happened? I have no way of calling 911. I can't call my family. How do I get hold of the kids? All right. How about this? What are you going to do if the grid goes down for food? Because then you've got a refrigerator. What are you going to do if the grid goes down and you have to have water? Have you got a plan? You can go for 30 days without food. You can't go for 4 days without water. You've got to have a means of developing potable water, drinkable water. And then on top of that, what if you have family in other places? Your kids are off at college. Do you have a spot where you're like, okay, if things go bad, I'll meet you here? There's a halfway point, or there's a link up site. There's a rally point, so to speak. And then just think about all the stuff. What things do I have a go bag? What's a go bag? Well, maybe I need to spend an entire dipper just on what a go bag is. But a go bag is literally that I don't know, a backpack is most generally it, but that it's got stuff in it that if you had to go, like if you had to get out of your house or you got stuck in your car somewhere, that go bag has got the things in it that you could survive with for a period of time. I think it's time for people to start thinking that way. And I don't mean like everybody's got to turn into a prepper. I consider myself to be prepper minded, but I'm not a full on prepper. Like, I'm not, it's not like a huge passion with me. I believe though in having a plan, and I believe in having the basics and being ready. And I believe in knowing how best to reach my loved ones. And so I'm encouraging y'all to do the same thing. A lot of y'all, I would say the majority of my audience remembers 9/11. 9/11 happened, and it was a shock it was a gut punch. It was a shock to our system. But it was while it was horrible, it was also horribly symbolic. It was striking at the heart of our ability to do trade, because Wall Street was right there next to the World Trade Center. It was trying to strike at the ability of our country to defend itself, because it struck the Pentagon. It was trying to strike Congress. We believe that the last jet that went down, 2 in the World Trade Centers, 1 in the Pentagon, 1 crashed in Shanksville in a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. But the belief was that it was headed to the Capitol. But they weren't going to be able to decapitate our government doing that. My concern is that right now terrorists realize that they can do more by impacting the drinking water in a small community, or by attacking a mall, or going to a major venue. And so my concern is that we will see terror incidents much like what we just saw in Moscow. Moscow just had 140 people die who went to a concert. In a society where they're not allowed to carry weapons, these guys showed up with grenades and small arms, and they killed 140 people and wounded scores of others. And they were with a group called ISIS-K. And ISIS-K is a variant of the ISIS that we fought in Syria and are still fighting now. But ISIS-K, which comes from the Khorasan region, which is, the northern Afghanistan, Tajikistan, that area, ISIS-K has exhibited for the first time that it has what we might call international outreach capability. It's now attacked major sites in Iran. Iran? Yeah, it doesn't like the Iranians. It's attacked Russia, doesn't like the Russians. And their belief is that it wants to strike the United States. ISIS-K is allegedly the organization that was behind the bombing at the Abbey Gate in Kabul during the obnoxiously bad, ill-timed, and not well thought out pullout that Biden administration did in Afghanistan. And ISIS-K has now been growing. Just like Al-Qaeda had a safe haven, ISIS-K now has that in Afghanistan, and allegedly they are growing unfettered because we're not there to say something about it. We're going to talk about this when I get back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back. And we are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Just covering down on some major ground across the northern half of the most beautiful state in the nation. This one right here, I'm talking about Alabama. Y'all, I mean, this show goes like way down south of Birmingham, up north of Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, back to Gadsden, parts of Georgia, Tennessee, and even Mississippi all thrown in just for good measure. Hey, by the way, I'll tell you who else covers a lot of ground, folks. That's our friends at Southern Immediate Care. Southern Immediate Care, a chain of clinics that covers a huge swath of ground across our big listening area. So Southern Immediate Care in places like Gadsden, Anniston, Atala, and then 6 more locations around the Birmingham area and more being added. Southern Immediate Care opens 7 days a week in every one of their locations, and they will see all ages. I'm talking, like I always say, pediatric up to geriatric. They'll see all of them. And Southern Immediate Care, by the way, is who I use personally. It is. And I've used them for a while now. And I do not use them because they advertise. I was already using them, so impressed with how clean and friendly and professional they were. I thought, too easy to brag on this, man. And I just went ahead and asked them, would y'all consider advertising? Because I could brag on this. And they said, you know what? Yeah. Turns out they're owned by a Rightside ruffian. But anyway, Southern Immediate Care. If you need medical attention, even on a Saturday, you look them up, find the location nearest to you, and head on down. And please tell them you heard about it on Rightside Radio. All right, I'll go to the phones real quick. I see Alan from Hartsville's called in. Alan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm over riding bees again today.
Yes, sir.
I've got a question. I got a question for you, Phil.
All right.
There was 3 countries back in the 90s, Cuba, Venezuela, and Honduras.
All right.
They were backed by a group that invaded this country. There was 2 movies, the original and a remake. First one was Russians remake. Backed them. Second movie was about China. I don't know if people remember. It's of course it's fictional, but it could happen because they crossed the border out of Mexico.
You talking about Red Dawn? Red Dawn, absolutely.
Red Dawn.
Yes.
Does that not sound familiar? That some of those countries, those three countries, all communist, and all 3 of them hiding. And guess what? Could it possibly happen in reality? That's just a question.
I don't know.
And I was going to ask, what do you think about it?
Well, I think you make the point. You make a great point, Alan. I mean, truth is stranger than fiction sometimes, right? And in the movie, Powers Booth, the guy who was shot down, the pilot who wound up working with the original Red Dawn, the kids, the Wolverines, he said that we had them coming in from here and coming from there, and he talked about how many of them had posed as illegals and come across the border and were saboteurs to cut power lines and transmission lines, and yeah, I see it as being very possible. In fact, I'm about to get into some of that right now, man. I appreciate the call, Alan, as always, man. Thank you so much.
Have a good day.
You too, buddy. Wolverines. That is absolutely one of my favorite movies. That was.
I think I've heard you talk about that movie, actually.
I probably have, and I probably will again. Just, it was just way too good. So, story here on New York Post that I told you about most recently. A guy from Lebanon was caught sneaking over the border, admitted that he is a part of Hezbollah, saying that his intent was to make a bomb and his destination was New York. Now, I don't know how this is going down. I mean, what's the deal? Is he like... He's like, woohoo, I was going to make a bomb, or was he being questioned and interrogated, and at some point he confessed? I don't know. Was he on the terror watch list? How'd they catch him? I don't know. All I know is this. Story on the New York Post came out 2 weeks ago. A Lebanese migrant caught sneaking over the border admitted he's a member of Hezbollah. Basel Abadi, 22, was caught by the U.S. Border Patrol on March 9th near El Paso, Texas. And while in custody, he was asked what he was doing in the U.S. and replied that he was going to try and make a bomb. He said that he had been trying to flee Lebanon and Hezbollah because he didn't want to kill people and said, once you're in, you can never get out. So, I'm not sure how that jives up with the idea of coming here to make a bomb. But then again, we are the great Satan to them, right? Hezbollah, by the way, is an Iran-backed group. So this is part of the problem. We know, story even points it out, border agents recorded 98 encounters with terror watch list individuals in fiscal year 22 at the border. Twice as many as that the very next year, 172. And so we're looking at an exponential, by the way, during the Trump administration, I think it was 21. But so far in the first 4 months of 2024, already 59 on the terror watch list have been apprehended. Now, on the one hand, I'm glad we're apprehending them. On the other hand, there's a lot more to apprehend. General Frank McKenzie, you may recall him, and you know, he had an amazing career, and I hate that it ended the way it did. But I also believe that he should have resigned after being in charge of CENTCOM when the debacle from Afghanistan ended the way it did. But just a story that came out in Fox News yesterday. General Frank McKenzie told ABC News this week that U.S. officials should believe that ISIS-K is going to do what it says it wants to do. It says that it has a strong desire to attack the U.S. and other foreign powers, and says we should believe them when they say that. In his words, General McKenzie says, I think the threat is growing, noting that what happened in Russia most recently, the 140 that were killed in the deadly attack in a Moscow concert venue, that was ISIS-K. He says ISIS-K began to grow as soon as we left Afghanistan. It took the pressure off ISIS-K. So I think we should expect further attempts of this nature against the United States as well as our partners and other nations abroad. I think this is inevitable, he said. Inevitable. The retired general maintains the U.S. should have kept a small troop presence in Afghanistan. You think? Now, I do like the fact that he says that they urged the Biden administration to please do that, and they were overridden by the State Department. The beta males at the State Department overrode the military. That's just unbelievable to me. But he says, yeah, we should have kept a small troop presence in Afghanistan. For those who believe that we should have gotten out of Afghanistan altogether, I will ask the same question I've asked multiple times. Do we or do we not still have bases in Japan? Do we or do we not still have bases in Europe? Do we or do we not still have bases in South Korea? The answer to all those is yes. Why? Because they are strategic basing locations. And after we defeated them on the field of battle and we reestablished relations, we worked out the opportunity for us to put our U.S. forces in those regions, not to keep a thumb on them, but because they are strategically located. And now we have forward presence. Force projection does not just happen when it's all over the horizon, regardless of what Biden, who's never served a day in the military, thinks. Over the horizon capability is cool, but you got to get there. But if you're already over the horizon, there's not a lot of get there to have to go through. And when you're putting logistics and troops into a combat zone, the last thing you need to do is have more miles between you and there. And if you've got strategic basing, that helps. So all we're talking about here is the recommendation was to leave roughly a brigade-size element at Bagram Air Base, period. It's a logistics hub. It's a security hub. We can have intelligence in the arena right there, literally, with Pakistan to our south, with China to our east, with Iran to our west. I mean, we would have been smack in the middle of where we need to be in case we have to do force projection. And we would have had the ability to have human intelligence capability in a country that has largely locked us out now, where ISIS-K, General McKenzie says, is growing. McKenzie says he believes things would be different. We might actually be safer than we are right now if the U.S. and its allies had kept a small presence in the country. A U.S. counterterrorism official told the New York Post that the ISIS-K terrorists could cross through U.S. borders and carry out an attack similar to the ones in Moscow, and that the ISIS is indeed growing bolder. An attack on U.S. soil is definitely a possibility, the official told the New York Post. I've got that story right here. Here it is. New York Post. Not that one, this one, New York Post. I got two New York Post stories. ISIS-K terrorists could cross America's porous borders and carry out an attack like the Moscow concert hall mass shootings that killed 143 people. It's an ultra-violent offshoot of the Islamic State. It is growing bolder, it says. And the source, again, said the attack on U.S. soil is definitely a possibility and would certainly send a message. We've had more than 256,000 migrant encounters just in February of this year alone. And in that, we have no idea how many may have been terrorists. Listen, I'm not trying to be sensational. What I'm trying to say is this. We cannot just sit here fat and happy and believe it won't happen to us. You've got a country like Moscow, which is a largely dictatorial, thumb on their people, you don't get to carry firearms country. And they were attacked in deadly fashion by ISIS operatives. How'd they even get there? I don't know. But what that does also means is that ISIS is no longer content just to scrap with the Taliban and try to gain control of ground in Afghanistan. They're willing to export their terror. The ultimate goal is to export it here. And if the door is wide open, the flies will get in. And that's where we are. And so, yeah, back to my original point, I just cannot recommend enough, y'all. You and your family have a plan. Literally, there's a lot of stuff you can do, but the basics of having a plan can take you 10 minutes. Where will we meet? How will we do it? Where will we go?
Go bag.
Have your go bag, exactly. Have some basics in the house. You know, when you go to Sam's next time, buy 2, if you can, of whatever it is that has a shelf life. You don't have to. I mean, you can invest in the the shelf stable foods and put those away. I think that's great. But you can also buy a lot of things that will take 2 to 3 years to expire that you can put on your shelf and live off of. And I encourage, and have a way to find water, and then have a way to take care of your friends, and make sure you know that you've got an extra round of your prescriptions if you need them. Stuff like that. Have a plan. Because we have no idea what's happening. And right now, Biden still has the helm. Yeah, whoever's talking to Biden has the helm. How about that? All right, brother, take us to the last break of the day. I'll come back and get some text messages. And oh, yeah, it's real stuff, man. I want to hear what you guys are thinking about it. I can see the texts are flowing in. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio. Y'all stay tuned. We will be right back. We are back. Phil Williams, Rightside Radio, solid, conservative, and just plain right. Oh, wow. I tell you what, there's some weather out there. You guys be careful. Keep your weather eye open, all right? So I'm got a text here from Jeff from Indiana. Says up in Louisville, which, of course, is well out of our listening area, but we got family up there. He says a tornado has touched down in the Louisville area near the I-71 corridor, and he says hopefully your dear wife doesn't have any family in that area. I would hope the same. And Jeff, if I recall, I think your wife's from Kentucky, but not that area. But anyway, yeah, blessings on him up there. I did see too. Did John from Huntsville say a while ago during the break? You said that he said there's a tornado watch.
Yep.
Yeah. Weather radio just went off. This is just from a little while ago. Saying that a tornado watch had been issued. This is John in Huntsville saying that.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, y'all stay. By the way, I checked the radar a moment ago, and where we are, Big Rig and I right now are in northeast Alabama, but it looks like the Shoals and Florence area and all that has got some pretty serious weather blowing through. So y'all just be careful. The grades are in too, by the way, bro. John from Huntsville. Aside from the tornado, it does not deter him, by the way, to give the grades. He says, Big Rig earns an A double plus for his amazing performance, and I hope I wasn't too harsh on Seinfeld. He's being nice. That's good.
I thought it was funny what he thought about Seinfeld.
He says, Phil's performance today was spectacular, so he earns an A double plus. However, today's winner is obviously Stephanie Smith with an A triple plus. Also just want to say, maybe I could write a Taco Tuesday jingle and Big Rig could add music to it. And by the way, it's starting to get stormy over here in Huntsville. Hope everybody stays safe. There you go. May have to have a special jingle premiered.
I like that.
Glenn from Bluntsville says, I have heard multiple times the average American only has about 3 days worth of food in there, and then his text cut off, and I think he means in their house. I would not be surprised, man. I would not. Listen, and here's a real simple thing. You can go buy a case of Denny Moore beef stew, a case of black beans because they're high in protein, and they won't a case of Spam. They won't expire, and then I got a red Sharpie, and I go and I mark on them. They expire. I mark on the outside of the package. Expires 7/25. Expires, 9 of 26. It's amazing how long some of those last, and it's worth it. Buy some protein powder you can add to water. Just stuff like that. Simple things you can buy right there at your corner store. Barry Mathen says, I wonder how many of the weapons used by ISIS-K in Moscow were arms that were abandoned by the United States in that foolish... No telling, bro. No telling. Richard T. from Madison says, which president signed the paperwork with the Taliban in Afghanistan in February of 2020 and agreed to remove all U.S. troops? Answer, Trump. Should the next president go back on the word of the previous president? Well, Richard, by that token, you would have to say then that we should have a stronger southern border because Trump had policies in place, and surely Biden can't change them. You're going to tell me right now, Richard, that the Biden administration, which has undone everything that Trump did with intent, I'm talking about actual executive orders, like several hundred executive orders, aimed at unraveling anything that had Trump's signature on it, that they were somehow bound to something that he had put in place for Afghanistan. And no, there was not an agreement that was signed that was anything more than an events-based agreement. I agree. I served there. I agree. I was ready for Afghanistan to be over. 20 years is a long time. But not the way it went. Not at all. And when Trump had an events-based milestone kind of a plan in place, what that meant was if certain things are achieved, we'll pull back. What did Biden do? He came in and pretended that was the deal that he had, except that he had a calendar date. He's going to make it 9/11. On the date of 9/11, we're pulling out. We'll be done. We'll be out of here. It'll be symbolic. It'll be 9/11. You put a calendar date, what does your enemy do? Your enemy looks at it and goes, well, we know when they're leaving now. We'll just go ahead and bide our time. So, Richard, you can try that, but it doesn't work. It's not real. And you can't tell me that the same administration that can change everything else the previous administration did was somehow bound to this one. It wasn't true. Metal Man Josh from Elkmont says all they have to do is put fentanyl in the water intake, especially if it's a coordinated attack. Well, there's a lot of it coming across, bro. Joe from Elkmont says, have you seen the movie trailer for the Civil War? I have. It's interesting. I don't know what to make of it yet. I can't decide whether it's going to have a messaging that I agree with or not because I just don't trust Hollywood. But I have seen it. It's a very interesting Civil War. Is the new movie coming out, I think, in May or June. talks about our country getting so fractured. And by the way, I don't think we're there. I don't. Now, here's what I could see happening. There was a show on TV. Charlene and I kind of binge watched it most recently, and it basically was it was what happens when, and there were a series of nuclear devices that were set off in strategic locations, designed to create these impassable regions of the country that cut everybody off from each other, shut down the grids, and left small towns trying to fend for themselves. And little small towns become fiefdoms, and they become either inclusive or they become warring to gain what the next small town has. And I could see fracturing like that happening if there was an incident that caused it. I do not see us deciding to just secede from each other right now. I don't at all. Chris from Priceville says, I would love your Democrat listeners to chime in on this. I would love them to make sense of it. I think what he's talking about is a topic that we're on right now. They can't, because they don't know how to handle it. And then John C. from Madison said, I was medically retired with 19 years. I did not see any benefits from my 6 years from the VA. Then it took me 29 more months to get any money from them. And I guess he's saying that in relation to me talking about them changing the amount of benefits they give to illegals. And even in the state of Maine, I think it is, or Maryland, they're actually taking a former veterans home and changing it into an illegal housing. All right, you guys, listen, keep your heads on a swivel. And I say all that not to say shock and awe and bad things are coming. What I am saying is this. Keep your head on a swivel is nothing but wisdom. Have a plan and be ready. At the same time, just know this. Here on this show, we're going to educate, enlighten, empower, and entertain you on what it means to be a conservative in today's world, and we'll do it every single day. Back here tomorrow, too. Y'all have a great night. We'll see you then.